This is Eric Miskell with EMS Now, and welcome to this edition of EMS Now Up Close. Today, it's my pleasure to speak with Dr. C.W. Yap. He is the Director of Advanced Engineering with PCI Limited, and PCI Limited, of course, is an EMS company based out of Singapore that was recently acquired this past year by Celestica. So CW, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today, to answer some questions, and to inform us a little more about your activities there and what PCI is doing. So let's begin there. Let me just give you an opportunity to kind of provide an introduction to yourself and to PCI Limited.
Good evening, Eric. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about PCI, myself, as well as the things that we do in PCI. So let me start with PCI, and it was, I don't know if you look for it, it was founded in the US, I think San Jose in
That's right.
and then I think it established a presence in Singapore sometime in 75. I think we're making LCDs and also PCBs at that time. And I mean, it grew over the years, and I think about 4 years ago, it was acquired by Platinum Equity, and then late last year, as you mentioned, it was acquired by Celestica.
Okay.
It is a medium-sized contract manufacturer, and we mainly do products design in industrial and commercial applications, especially in the areas of telematics, human-machine interface, IoT, and single-board computer platforms. We also do commercial consumer products for some of the larger companies that you will probably be aware of. But our main focus is mainly industrial and commercial. We have 3 locations. The first one is the headquarters, which is in Singapore. Then we have a factory in Batam, Indonesia, as well as another factory in Kunshan, China. And in terms of design teams, we have, again, 3 locations. Singapore is the main design team, and we have a large secondary design team in the Philippines, as well as another medium-sized design team based in Bandung, Indonesia. So that is, I think, all about PCI. For myself, I've been with the company for about 20 years. I'm responsible for the advanced engineering team in PCI, and I work very closely with marketing as well as the design engineering teams on new platforms and new technologies in order to attract new customers in the areas that marketing says that we should go into, as well as produce more offerings to our current customers. Before joining PCI, I was a specialist in digital signal processing in the field of, specifically in the field of video communications. I think that about sums up PCI and myself.
Very good. Thank you for that. And let's talk about that. Let's talk more about the advanced engineering function within PCI. How does that operate? How does that integrate, or how do you collaborate with the engineering group within Celestica, who was always known as a good engineering, having good engineering capabilities themselves? How does that all work now? Okay,
so we don't have a very large advanced engineering group. The main collaboration so far, because it's only been like 5 months maybe since the acquisition, we're still working through some of the processes, all the joint efforts, but we have managed to actually work with the Celestica team on joint bidding to win new customer, where they believe that the expertise for a particular project would lie with PCI rather than with what they specialize in, what Celestica specializes in. They do specialize in many things, aerospace and defense and networking equipment, GPS equipment, and so on. But I think they're trying to leverage what we are good at, which is like human-machine interfaces or IoT, and direct some joint bids towards us in those areas. And so far, I think we've done quite a few, and it's been relatively smooth going. Of course, we are ironing out some of the kinks, how we interact. And I would say that at the moment, there are a few going on. And so far, we are working through the processes and trying to make it a smoother interaction for everyone. Yeah. Overall. Yeah.
And of course, that always takes some time, right? I mean, within those situations. How large was it? Let's just go to the PCI group without the Celestica. How large was that? I'm assuming a lot of that time is interacting with your business development teams and with your customers or prospects to kind of see what their problems are and how you can help solve them.
Yes. So in terms, are you referring to the number of people?
Yes, that as well, please. Yeah.
So the whole the number of engineers, design engineers, I call them, right? Would be in the order of, I forget the exact number, about 60. Yeah, it's not huge. And the advanced engineering team maybe has about between about 12% of that staff strength. Now, okay, so my team is supposed to focus on new technology, investigating new technology to see whether it actually makes sense to get into it, designing platforms so that we may turn the design around faster later if there's a customer interested in that platform. But sometimes if the platform attracts interest from a customer and it turns into an actual commercial project, then my engineers will go on to take on that actual commercial project. So there are times when I, so to speak, lose one or two of my staff because they are actually involved with a commercial project. But who else better to do it than the person or the people who actually worked on the platform in the first place?
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, and we don't do blue sky research, so we don't. We don't do basic physics or mathematical research. We're more into applied technologies, and we're always keeping an eye out, especially in the specializations that we're good at. And the other thing that we do is also to try to advance our internal knowledge base. Yeah, which is we all have to keep up because the technology is moving so fast, and yeah, it is really hard to keep up and design new products if you don't keep pushing yourself forward.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, let's talk about some of the platforms that you have referenced there. So the Advanced Engineering Group has developed several platforms in collaboration with your clients, as you've been saying, one of which is the telematics platform. Tell us about that and what you can do for clients in that particular area.
All right, so we started with telematics a long time ago, one of the largest telematics suppliers in the US. This was back when only satellite communications was available
Okay.
for communication. So it was
Mhm.
quite a while back. Nowadays, it's more like a combination of 3G, 4G, 5G together with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, right? So all the terrestrial communications are quite widespread now, and you don't really need satellite communications anymore. So in telematics, depending on the needs of the clients, we have solutions ranging from high-end solutions such as a ruggedized tablet together with a smart docking station. So the smart docking station is the one that actually communicates and connects the vehicle.
Mhm.
And the ruggedized tablet is the one that actually talks to the docking station wirelessly, and so the driver can interface with that and also pull it out. And they can do things like they can do like a self what do you call it, like online education courses when they're like
Okay.
resting, you know, stuff like that.
Okay.
So it ranges from those high-end solutions down to like little dongles that plug into the vehicle, and they don't have a display. You need a smartphone application to communicate with them and interact with them, but they can upload the data independently up to the cloud, and where the customer can view it from the back end. Yeah.
Okay.
So occasionally the customers will come and say, hey, we need extra capability, like we need connection to certain types of sensors. The sensors, for example, maybe it's for cold chain monitoring or fuel pumps or trailer tracking or something like that. And we then take on the challenge to design these sort of connected sensors to the main telematics product, and we can customize everything from hardware to a certain level, the low-level firmware that they require to support their actually telematics application. Most of the time, the actual application itself comes from the customer, yeah, because they have a system in place and the cloud is already all set up. So most of the time, we do all the low-level stuff, yeah, for them.
Okay, very good. Now, the other one that you mentioned is the IoT, which is the popular area for electronics manufacturing. Tell us more about the type of work and the products you're supporting in that particular area.
Okay, so I think everyone knows what IoT is. So it's basically the ecosystem from the edge all the way to the cloud. So we have designed edge devices that uses sensors, and they communicate using low power wide area network protocols such as Sigfox or LoRa, or nowadays more often than not NB-IoT and Cat-M1. So in addition to that, sometimes the edge devices can go direct to the cloud, but sometimes they are in an area whereby they actually communicate with a gateway, and we also do gateways. So so they will transfer the data from one low power protocol to a higher power backend protocol that links to the cloud. So we do the edge devices, we do the gateways. What we don't do is we don't do the cloud. Yeah, that's not our specialty.
Okay.
Yeah, we do the hardware and the software as well. So the end-to-end, the other thing we do as well in partnership with our customers is actually to make sure that the security from the edge to the gateway to the cloud is robust. You know that these days you hear a lot of exploits happening where hackers are trying to take over your IoT device and using them to create a large, what do you call it, botnet or something to attack a target. So we need to make sure that the security side of things is handled, and that's what we work very closely in partnership with our customers to do. Yeah.
That's a good segue, because what I wanted to ask about is kind of the benefits that your customers derive from working with the advanced engineering group. And you're speaking some of those naturally already, but elaborate on that a bit, if you would. Please.
Okay. So because we look at new technology or new areas, and we're always the guys don't really like it that much. I always get them to start looking, and they have to start from scratch sometimes. Technology, for example, AI, right? AI is completely new to us. So so what we do is we are always looking at evolving standards in the areas that we are strong in, like IoT, HMI, SoC. And in addition, we also sometimes look at new areas that could possibly have synergy with some of our existing platforms. AI, AIoT. I don't know if you've heard of that. I'm sure you have. It's AI at the edge. So if we are able to develop a proof of concept prototype, sometimes even to the point that we certify the entire prototype, then the customers benefit in a few ways. For example, the design cycle is a lot shorter with us, right? Because we already have the platform. We only need to do some modifications to get them to the market, and it's a lot quicker. The other thing is that they also have confidence if they see a working prototype or platform that we know what we're doing, and we have the prior knowledge to help them accelerate their design. Right. So these are the benefits we see when we do advanced engineering. Yeah.
And tell me, one of the big issues for a year now at least has been component shortages in the industry. How has that impacted your work within the advanced engineering group? I mean, are you just being called on to do more redesigns of products, or what's the impact? What are you seeing?
Okay, so yes, the component shortage, the global component shortage being faced by the industry affected us quite significantly over the last 2 years. Yeah, about last two and a half years. Yeah. And now it's quite ridiculous. Some of the lead times are up to beyond a year. Yeah. So when we look at a platform today, we would try to implement a more flexible design. We would also look at alternatives. Okay, I think a lot of companies will have to do that. So we look at alternatives, and we try to make the design in terms of electrical engineering flexible enough so that we could substitute maybe 1 or 4 different alternatives, and the design will still work within specifications, and it will still give the good current draw. That means it will go out of spec. It will still pass the accelerated live test, etc., etc. And software helps a lot as well. So software actually had to be a lot more flexible. So anytime, case in point, we had a project based on a platform that we developed in IoT, where it ran into the millions, right? And we could get the first microprocessor for the first design. We could only get maybe 700K. And we knew that after 700K, we're not going to get any more, not even from the open market.
Mhm.
So when we finished that design, we already were starting a second design because that's the main microprocessor. So we were already starting a second design where we went to a sort of a new evolution of that microprocessor, which we were guaranteed maybe another million or so. And so we got that up, qualified in time for when the first processor ran out of stock. We got the second design in.
Okay.
But that involved a lot of work. The engineers were working almost 7 days a week to get that up and running.
Mhm.
And even if the second processor had a third backup, right? Another backup, and we did that as well. It never went into production, but we had a design on standby just in case. The other parts that we are not as tedious would be all the the passive parts or the smaller active parts, op amps or crystals or certain sort of DC to DC converters. So we would qualify a few of them together with our commodity engineering because they had the view or they had the visibility as to which part would run out by when. And sometimes the customers would, our vendors would, unfortunately, due to due to the supply chain, we have to decommit. And if they decommit, we want to make sure that we are able to have something that will bridge that gap in the short term. Yeah, and so yeah, lots of redesign. And lots of flexibility built into the design to cater for this shortage of parts.
Yeah. And that's other than the part shortage. I'd imagine in a field like advanced, there's got to be a lot of challenges, right? You've talked about how fast technology is now proliferating everywhere. What are the biggest challenges that you see in this area for your advanced engineering group?
Okay. So so one of the things that we do like once a year or about once a year, we have a big like a brainstorming session internally. That is to predict and select the technology or the platform to work on. It doesn't always, it's not always successful. Okay, let's just put it that way. It's maybe out of 5 technologies we work on, maybe 2 or 3 might come to fruition and actually work out with customers adopting it, and sometimes the other 2 we spend the time and the effort and the money and do the research and the work, but it doesn't take off. But we are aware of that, and that happens all the time, right? The other thing is we used to have this challenge where we were not able to access more interesting technologies, technologies that require chips or technologies that require substantial volumes or partnerships with large companies. Because back then, like I mentioned, PCI was a medium-sized contract manufacturer. They would look at our volumes and they say, "Oh, okay, we don't want to work with you directly because maybe it's not a big enough volume to interest them." So they'll say, "Work with our tier 2 or 3 integrated design houses or something like that." And so that kind of closed us away from prevented us from trying out things that we wanted to. But that is less of a problem these days since the acquisition by Celestica. So now we're backed by a very large company, and the vendors are actually a lot more forthcoming in sharing the latest stuff with us. And also keeping up with the latest technology, like you mentioned, is an issue. I mean, due to just due to workloads and my manpower being moved into commercial projects. But I managed to. So I work with another gentleman who is the director of design engineering.
Okay.
And sometimes I get to borrow some of his manpower, and we work very closely together because a lot of solutions involve both of us actually coming up with a solution together. Yeah. So we share some of our engineering work stuff. Yeah. Very closely.
And I asked about the challenges, but the flip side to that coin is, there's challenges, there's opportunities, and you kind of reference that. So, what are those opportunities that you see for expanding the capabilities and services of your group and as you move forward?
So we see that currently under Celestica, we think that the customer base can grow a lot faster because both sets of marketing teams are working together. So sometimes they feed us projects that we would not normally be able to work on or to get by ourselves. And we see that because of that potential growth in the customer base in new areas, so we also are starting to look at expanding our know-how, our knowledge base in areas, just for example, maybe motor control, like I mentioned before, artificial intelligence. And also there's a possibility of looking at more software offerings. We've done a lot of hardware since the start of when PCI started offering design services, and software was like an add-on to make the low-level hardware work. All right. But now we're looking at, in future, maybe we can increase our software offering, new services in IoT security, as well as services all the way up to the cloud, which currently we don't do. Right. And that would require an expansion of our software team as well. Yeah. Right. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah. So are there any challenges, you talk about that, and with those opportunities, finding good engineers? Is that Singapore's always, how is that? You smile. So how is that a challenge?
It's a huge challenge. Case in point, let's just talk about software. A lot of the big, I would call them internet firms, have opened up offices, design offices in Singapore. For example, Google, Tencent, ByteDance, and then we have all the larger companies like Dyson and all that, and they all need talent. And so they are willing to pay a lot for, especially software talent. Especially software talent in Singapore, it's taken off it's gone off the charts. So the other surprisingly, the other part that actually needs software talent are the banks. So I think in all the security, crypto stuff, They have been grabbing a lot of the software talent. So we will probably build up our software capability offshore, and which we have been doing and we're trying to do. Similarly, for engineers, we have a core team here in Singapore, but more often than not, we are having to look outside of Singapore to other areas and really look for good design engineers, good communication, especially in the English language, and good managers, because they're offshore. We need really good managers to make sure that everything is running well, and they can liaise well with the Singapore team. Yeah, so
Right.
yeah, so that's what we do. Yeah, in terms of manpower, it is an issue. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, I like what you talked about. Finding them is a challenge, and then once you find them, you better keep them, right? You better retain them. That's where good managers come in.
Yeah.
Good. CW, our time is ending here, but this has been a fantastic conversation. I wish to thank you for taking the half hour or whatever it's been and spending some time with me, answering my questions and introducing more of the advanced engineering functions there at PCI for our audience. So thank you for your time. I wish you nothing but continued success. And hopefully we get some more updates in the future from you.
Thank you so much for having me on. It is a pleasure. I enjoyed talking to you about the functions that we do here in PCI. And yes, maybe in future we can catch up again, maybe in a couple of years' time. Let's see how things change. Yes.
See if you've made it to the cloud yet, right? So
yeah, yeah, I look forward to that.
Very good. CW, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you.